get started with our presentation.
Just you can grab it off the stand. So.
How's that? Okay. Welcome. We'll get started with our presentation today. This presentation is being live streamed as well to people that are sitting at their desks or at home. I'm very pleased that we have today with us Ken Doyle. Ken is the Executive Director for Technology Access Centres Canada, and he'll talk about the TACs and how maybe we can be involved with the services. So, Ken, I'm just going to turn it over to you, and after we're done, there'll be some opportunity for questions from everybody. All right? Thank you. Ken?
Great. Thank you, Reg. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Just really quickly, how many are familiar with college-based applied research? One. Okay, good, because that's part of the overview, so the less familiar the better. But I'd just like to talk to you today about the Technology Access Centre program, the Technology Access Centres across Canada, and how there could be tremendous opportunities for collaboration between the TACs and the universities and the sort of research going on. So and feel free to stop me anytime with questions or clarifications, and I'll get through the presentation and then we can have a little dialogue. But I think it's important to go back to go forward. So in 2008, there was a creation of a college and community innovation program designed to fund applied R&D for... Hey, good. Oh, that's okay. It's the middle of the presentation. It's all good.
We just walk past you.
Yeah, mind the cabling. Right. So CCI was created in 2008, and it was the first time that there'd been a program specifically for the community colleges in the country to conduct applied R&D, applied research in the service of solving industry challenges. And then over the years, it's evolved, and right as of today, there's 110 eligible colleges from coast to coast, and the program has an $85 million annual budget. Within that program, and it's the only of its kind in the tri-councils at the federal level, there are 11 sub-initiatives, but they're really broken down into three main categories. Project-specific awards, so a one and done. Capacity building awards, multi-year grants to provide funding for colleges to do a number of projects in a certain area, aerospace, agriculture, food innovation, and build that applied research capacity. And then, and these are all sort of, again, one and dones, multi-year but non-renewable. And then the capacity maintenance awards, the Technology Access Centre grants, and I'll get into specifically what that is shortly. But as a bit of an analogy, you think about, hockey, and then there's the Timbits hockey, the introductory stuff where you pay your registration fee, you get to play, everybody gets equal ice time, you learn the skills of the game, and you learn what you're good at, what you like. As you progress and still like hockey, there are a finite amount of competitive spots in the junior semi-pro leagues where it's talent and merit based. But again, you're sort of paying to play, and you further hone and refine your skills. And then when you get to the pros, the elite levels, everything changes a bit. And there are a drastically fewer amount of spots only for the best of the best, merit-based. And now instead of you paying to play, people are paying to watch you play. And the college applied research stream is very much like that, where the Timbits hockey would be like the project-specific awards, one and done, figuring out what you're good at. And then the multi-year capacity building is really when you're finding your niche and growing it. And then at the end of it, when you become the best of the best, you have your area locked down, and now people are coming to pay to work with you, you receive that Technology Access Centre designation. And the TAC designation really isn't that cryptically named. Technology Access Centre. These are specialized R&D centers at colleges across the country where they focus on one specific area of innovation expertise designed to solve the innovation challenges of small companies from the region within sort of a 1-hour drive of that center. So they're in everything from aerospace to pulp and paper, construction to nanotechnology, whatever is supporting the technologies that support the industrial sector of importance to that region. Access. The goal is to provide access to specialized facilities, equipment, and expertise that small companies would never have access to on their own, and provide value-added support to solve, again, the company-identified challenge. And then center. These aren't one-and-done projects. These are multi-year renewable awards in perpetuity. There's a physical center. It has an address, a sign out front, a dedicated staff, available 24/7, 365 to support the needs of the clients that come through them. So another way to look at it is the TAC acts as the region's innovation hub, where it's sort of front and center, and then they are expected to know all of the players in the innovation ecosystem regionally, the universities, the colleges, the IRAP ITAs, government departments, small companies, medium, large companies, funders, all of it. They're supposed to know who all the players are and be able to accept referrals and refer traffic to this innovation service provider best suited to support them. Now, they're the hub, but they're also unique in that they know their role in the whole process. And I'm sure we're all familiar with the technology readiness levels, but the space the TACs play in is that TRL 4 to 8, the later stage innovation getting closer to market. The universities, the government labs, they do phenomenal basic discovery research in the lower TRLs. And then when these innovators and entrepreneurs want to take the steps to get that innovation, that widget closer to market, that's where the TACs can step in and help these small companies get it ready and advance along the TRLs before handing it back off to the company at TRL 9 to go and commercially exploit. And I'll get into why that's important in a little bit. So while primarily the TACs are set up to help the small companies in the region become more innovative and productive, they will work, they're partner agnostic. They'll work with anybody who comes through the door. They're looking at the innovation challenge that's presented, not the size of the company, the bank statements, anything like that. They'll work with sole props and small businesses, the same as medium, large companies, government labs, universities, international partners. They're really just open to providing access to their facilities and equipment to solve people's challenges, demand-driven innovation. And again, what makes the TACs unique in the college applied research space is normally when a college is doing an applied research project, they'll second a faculty member and instructor, deploy them on the project, and then when it's done, that faculty member is released back into the hallowed halls of academia. The TAC, on the other hand, has a dedicated R&D team. So they have a manager, the administrative operations support, as well as dedicated researchers, technicians, technologists who are there every day, day in, day out, project in, project out. And they're also able to draw on internal resources from their college or CEGEP that they're affiliated with, faculty, staff, students, graduates, as well as external experts as needed, when needed, on a project-by-project basis. So, provide an overview of what a TAC is, and I think it's important to highlight what a TAC isn't, just to clarify a bit further. They're not incubators or accelerators for startups, though they work very closely with the regional incubators and accelerators. The incubators are trying to help a company grow and succeed and get to market, same with the accelerators. The TACs are that resource that, when a company's getting their widget closer to commercialization, to refine that prototype, get the regulatory guidance, get it right to the finish line, go out, see the TAC, have an engagement, and then they go back to their incubator accelerator. They're not at all colleges. There are 47 technology access centers in the country at 38 colleges. There's 110 NSERC eligible colleges, 150 colleges across the country. So these are the best of the best, but not every college or region has one. They're not centers of excellence of commercialization of research or those kind of things. They're focused mainly towards the lower TRLs and the basic discovery research, and are often university-based. The TACs are solely at the colleges, and again, not at universities or NRC institutes. It's a uniquely Canadian innovation based on a 35-year-old Quebec model that the OECD recently did a case study on, and it works well, but it's solely for the college space. And then two other important parts are what they do is not off-the-shelf routine service delivery, and they're not cheap. So there has to be a value-add, innovative, novel aspect to any engagement they do with an external partner they won't just do routine testing or 3D printing or stuff like that. There are a number of private sector providers who do a phenomenal job of that. And if a client comes through wanting basically subsidized support like that, they'll refer them to the private sector. And to ensure that they're not unintentionally competing unfairly with the private sector, they charge at or above market rates for these value-add services. So what is the sort of the mandate that a TAC inherits when they receive their award? Again, college applied research traditionally is focused on that top right corner, applied R&D projects. When a TAC is awarded to a college, that mandate grows, and now they're expected to provide shorter term engagements, technical and business services, as well as customized training. And then they also inherit, because they're sort of a public good, a mandate for technology diffusion, where it's incumbent on them to socialize these emerging enabling technologies they're dealing with to industry in the region to help them become more innovative and productive, as well as the population at large, if that's possible. So just a few examples of these service offerings. Hey, right. So the technical and business services, I mean, stuff for market analysis, product labeling review, lit reviews, field trial simulations, project management, focus groups. Applied R&D, again, reverse engineering, manufacturing process design and development, 3D printing, rapid prototyping, helping navigate all of the grants and funding programs out there. A critical one is cost avoidance, where if you're a company, you've got this idea for a novel product and you approach the TAC, they can be completely objective until you stop dumping money into a bad idea before you take it further and get ridiculed on Dragon's Den or something like that. Customized training, again, you've just bought a $80,000 robot welder or 3D printer and you're a 12-person manufacturing company in the hinterland. It came with a PDF instruction manual. What do? The TAC can help explain to you how you can implement that into your workflow and maximize the productivity of your team with that customized training. And then technology diffusion, open houses, demo days, let people know what they have and how it could impact them to make their lives a bit easier. So it's sort of difficult being a TAC because every day you go into work, you're not quite sure what's going to come through the door. Sort of like that Simon video game where, you know, it could be 3 customized training engagements in a row, then an R&D project, then services. You apply for this award willingly and accept the possibility that you don't know what's going to happen from day to day. And you do your best to facilitate that. So another piece of it, you know, we mentioned the customized training, and I'd consider that more direct training on technologies and equipment. There's also a lot of indirect training that goes on. So this graphic here you can see is trying to convey the long winding road of an applied research engagement with a college, where the people, you come through the door, have an initial meeting, all the way up through to the completed project and invoice paid, everybody happy. We surveyed the members a few years ago about of 100 people who come through your door, how many people make it to the finish line and where do they drop off along the way? And a few years ago it was only 23% of the people who come through the door for an initial engagement actually end up finishing the project, paying the invoice, and it being a success. Most of the things fell off along the way at the feasibility study point, then the statement of work, and then when it's okay, we're going to do this project, it's going to take 4 months, it's going to cost $32,000 of time, material, supplies, we can start tomorrow. And the small company will get a sticker shock of, what, $32,000, what? And then they're never seen or heard from again. That can be frustrating because the metrics that the TACs are judged by are entirely based on the people who make it to the finish line, and no credit's really given to all of the hand-holding and time that goes into walking people through the different stages of a collaborative applied research engagement with an academic partner. So we try to develop tools and stuff like that to better prepare the companies to get a sense of what they should be expecting when they go in to consider doing a project. So why, and over 3,000 companies a year work with the TACs. Why is that? And there's 7 main reasons. One, again, it's demand driven. The whole mandate is the TAC will solve the industry partner's problem, solve that innovation challenge, and then get them closer to market. There's tailored engagements depending on the client's timelines and budgets. There's flexible arrangements about how to work with a TAC. IP friendly. This is a huge one, especially for the small companies that The TACs don't retain any of the intellectual property. There's no equity stake, no royalties, nothing like that. They hand it all off to the industry partner to commercially exploit and take to market. Particularly given the nature of the small companies they work with and the getting that widget ready for commercialization, taking an equity share or a little stake in royalties can really hamper their ability to move nimbly and attract funding. So the TACs aren't resourced to register, maintain, and defend IP, so they just wish the client well on their way to market. And because of that, the next 2 points, objective advice, they can be completely objective. They can tell you it's not technologically feasible, it's not commercially feasible, the market is saturated, or you're in violation of somebody in Sweden's intellectual property. Stop, pivot, go back to the drawing board. And that cost avoidance, again, it's a metric that's not tracked. The funders are concerned about how much private sector revenue did you bring in. It's really hard to quantify the impact of telling somebody who's already sunk $300,000 into a bad idea to just stop, pivot, go back to the drawing board. Another important piece, because they're connected with the college, whenever possible, they do try to integrate students and recent graduates onto the research project teams to give them experiential learning opportunities and hone their innovation skills and innovation literacy. Everybody's a rational actor here. The companies aren't stupid. They see it as a way to test drive talent. So if they do a 6-month project with a TAC and there's 2 students in the last part of their program who are going to graduate and they're rock stars, the company's going to be, okay, when you graduate, you've got a job with me. Come on, let's go. And then again, the customized training, you finally bought into the long sought calls to embrace technology. It'll make your life easier. Great, you've outlaid a tremendous amount of capital for a new piece of equipment, but how does that work? The TAC can help you integrate it into your workflow to maximize your productivity and generate those returns on that investment. So I mentioned just the ease at which to work with a TAC. There's many different ways. One, fee for service. Walk in, scope a project. Here's your quote. We start tomorrow, and so it's professional researchers. It's going to be expensive, but it's going to be lightning quick. If you're a bit more patient or a bit more resource constrained, there's always leverage projects. Because the TACs are connected to the college and the college has access to a lot of provincial and federal R&D funding support programs, they're able to collaborate with that company to put in an application and maybe get some leverage funding, which will offset a good portion of that risky applied research project. The drawbacks are that these are competitive programs, there's no guarantee to success, and the timelines can be painfully long from application to decision. So if you're patient, it could work out great, and maybe that $32,000 project will only cost you $7,000 out of pocket for, again, the same professional team of researchers and incredibly competent applied research. And then one that is frankly, I'd say almost criminally underutilized are capstone applied research projects, where under the supervision of a TAC researcher, the TAC will pull together a multidisciplinary team of students in the final semester of their program and deploy them on the innovation challenge that the company brings. Now this is mainly for companies who've never collaborated on R&D before, are very cash constrained, or have a real moonshot idea that nobody else will take seriously. Well, let the students figure it out over 4 or 8 months, and then they present that deliverable to the company. And the company's on the hook for maybe the cost of supplies and a modest honorarium for the students. Again, rational actors here. The students are looking at it as a 4-month job interview right before they graduate, and the company's looking at it as a way to test drive talent and recruit maybe the next generation. If that project goes well, then they can graduate into a different mechanism. So, talked about the TACs, and now I'd like to talk about sort of the profile of the companies they work with to give you an idea of the companies. So these are some data from 2018. We're still updating this year's data because we went from 30 to 47 TACs in March, so we've got to wait a bit to get new updated data. But as of last year, the 30 TACs at that time worked with over 2,400 clients each year. They work with them primarily on the applied research projects, but about a third of it is those quick hit business and technical service engagements. Training is still a very untapped, underutilized resource, but we foresee that growing in the future. Demand from companies, again, the majority of them are between 2 and 10 years old or over 10 years old. There are a lot of resources and supports available for the startups and the young companies getting to the point where they're validating that prototype or getting that alpha prototype made, and then coming to see the TACs for that incremental innovation support or adding a new SKU or changing up an existing product. So how big are they? Again, 3/4 of them are under 100 employees, but this is pretty close to in line with the Canadian industrial makeup as a whole. 1.1 million small and medium-sized enterprises, very few large ones. So the TACs tend to work with the micro and small firms in the regions to, again, help them become more innovative and productive. This one's an interesting one where 60% of the clients are within an hour's drive of the center itself. And then the other ones, they're very unique centers with very specialized expertise, so they do draw people from across the country and internationally, but the bulk of the traffic is from within sort of an hour's drive. This is a neat one. What type of company are they that work with the TAC? And this is an interesting distinction here. Technology companies, think of the app developers, the coders, the digital technology companies, and then technology-enabled companies. So companies that have been operating in like an analog industry like agriculture, food innovation, having them embrace technology to become more innovative and productive. So the lion's share, almost 80%, are those analog companies from analog industries finally buying in to see how technology can make their lives easier, either cut costs or increase profits. And then what stage are they at? Again, 3/4 of them are post-revenue, they're generating sales. So they're small companies, they've been around for a while, they're post-revenue, and they're from analog industries, and the TAC's helping them get into 2019, 2020. So I've talked about the TAC model, who they work with. I think it's important to touch on who are the TACs themselves. So this is a eclectic list of the 47 logos from the TACs. They are everywhere from Nova Scotia, PEI, New Brunswick, Victoria, Inuvik, across the country. Here in Winnipeg, very proud to say that we have 3 technology access centers associated with Red River College. The Prairie Research Kitchen, which does food innovation, one of the new members. The Technology Access Center for Aerospace and Manufacturing, one of the original TACs from 2012, doing incredible stuff in the advanced manufacturing, transportation industries. And then the Building Envelope Technology Access Center, where again, assisting just with the innovation in the building industry, construction industry, building tightness, a great center as well. And the industrial sectors covered are incredibly varied, from ag to marine to food to manufacturing, transportation, automation, digital, it's wearable technologies. It's a great group all operating the common TAC model regardless of the region, the size of the institution, the language. So where are they? Here's the map. Again, it's a little bit tough to see. Very strong concentration in Ontario and Quebec. Some Atlantic representation, Alberta, Manitoba, very strong, British Columbia, Northwest Territories. This is also very interesting. The red dots were the 30 sort of original TACs, and the yellow dots are the 17 new ones. It really paints a picture of the evolution of the federal support for college applied research, but really the enabling conditions provided by the different provinces to help get college applied research off the ground 15, 20 years ago. And that's why you see so many in Quebec, which has a very long-standing tradition of supporting college applied research. Ontario, same thing. And then it's still emerging and growing provincially in the West and in the Atlantic, but we're very optimistic for the future. Again, you can't just create a TAC overnight. These are awards that are based on capacity that's been built, expertise that's been gained. Right, so who am I? What's Tech Access Canada? Several years ago, because these centers are so diverse geographically, technologically, we have a center in virtual reality in downtown Toronto, a large urban market in an industry with a history of innovation, investing in R&D. Same with aerospace south of Montreal, as well as centers in rural and remote areas doing very niche stuff. Local and organic food systems in Victoriaville, Quebec. Honeybee commercialization in Grand Prairie, Alberta. All operating a common TAC model, but very diverse with their own identity on the ground. is there a way to establish sort of a level of service excellence across the centers? And that's why Tech Access Canada was formed a few years ago with two real mandates. One, share best practices between the centers internally to help them operate at that same sort of common level. So a company working with TACM here in Winnipeg should have the same lovely experience working in the center in Ontario or PEI. And then externally, promote the technology access centers as a resource for small businesses or anybody with an innovation challenge to solve. And then also act as a test bed for small-scale demonstration projects using the TAC cohort as the service providers. And that's what I'd like to chat about right now, is a program that we administer called Interactive Visits. And it's a very unique program supported by the National Research Council's Industrial Research Assistance Program, where effectively we're able to provide IRAP clients with 20 hours of access to any of the centers in Canada to collaborate, solve a specific innovation challenge, demo some technology, really just solve a problem they've encountered. And we've been running this for a few years now, and it's everybody seems very happy with it. The companies love it. They leave better off than when they did. The ITAs who manage the companies love it because they're providing client service. And the TACs love it because it's a way for us to reimburse them for time that they may have just been giving away for free without even knowing it. So what are some of the use cases? Access to cutting edge tech, guiding companies on, you just went to a trade show and you got wowed by a 5-axis water jet cutter, and you're going to go out and spend $150,000 on it. Maybe you don't need that Cadillac model given your operations and the size of your company. Maybe this $30,000 model will suffice for now, giving them that advice that lets them spend on equipment and technology more appropriately. And then sharing strategic information and advice, giving them that guidance, and working towards maybe a larger scale project going down the line. The process is very simple, and we've tried to keep it as efficient and clean as possible for everybody. A small company encounters a challenge, their ITA refers them to the program. They basically write down what their technological challenge is, what they've done to address it in the past, what they hope to gain for it, and their timeline. And if they know which center they'd like to work with, they indicate that. If not, we have a mechanism to find a center who'd be in a position to help them out. From there, they submit it. The TAC tells them how they plan to spend the 20 hours. We authorize the visit, they go forth, collaborate, and then we track some metrics on the back end going forward to see the impact of this initial engagement. So designed to be very streamlined, it's all done online, very clean and timely. I think our record so far is from receiving a request to authorizing it's 21 minutes. It shocks a lot of people who are used to other federal government programs where we're talking months and months and months and months. So the TACs are in a constant state of evolution. And there's two main ways. If you have an innovation challenge or think maybe I'd like to work with one of these TACs. Again, we've tried to streamline as efficiently as possible, connecting somebody, an innovator entrepreneur with an innovation challenge, and a TAC who's able to service that challenge. So meetthetacs.ca is the most up-to-date resource for the centers, their points of contact, what they do, their areas of innovation expertise. And then the different sectors we've added down below, where sifting through a list of 47 centers can be laborious and often confusing, and sometimes the names pigeonhole them, where the Aerospace Technology Access Center in Saint-Hubert, Quebec, you think is just going to be doing planes and propellers and stuff like that. They're actually doing a tremendous amount of health innovation, composites, allied metals, that kind of stuff. So the technologies that they work with are vertically integrated in that primary industry, but also have industrial applications across sectors. And this is a way for them to self-identify some of the sectors and projects they've done in the past. So rather than sort through 47, you just click on environmental technology, and boom, it gives you the 13 centers that have done environmental technology related applied research and technical services in the past. So that's a more curated list for you to reach out and contact them proactively. And because there's a lot of churn within the centers, people coming and going, this is the best way to keep it up to date, because any other sort of, and we've done it in the past with profiles and books and that's really just a snapshot in time. This is always kept up to date and current. Now, that's if you want to be proactive and dig through and learn more about the centers. I mean, obviously, health innovation would be very important and relevant today, and there's a number of centers that have experience with projects in that, if it's not their primary sector. We also were receiving a lot of traffic from the Innovation Canada portal, which is a great thing to help people sift through those 1,000 programs and find a program that might work for them to solve their innovation challenge. So we created something we call the Jump Ball Initiative. And this was, again, just to make life easy for people, where try to keep the steps obscenely simple. Any innovator, entrepreneur, person, robot, dog, cat, doesn't matter, in the country or worldwide, sends an email to jumpball@techaccess.ca, a 6-word subject line, and answer 3 questions. What's your challenge? What have you done to address it? What's your deadline for assistance? And then contact info. We have one person at each of the 47 centers that is a rapid responder who will get back to us within 24 hours. So we receive a request, and then we just throw that up in the air and see which centers jump for it. We create a curated list. Say we get 7 responses back saying, yep, we'd like to connect with this company, know more about it. We create a curated list of the center, their location, a brief description, and the point of contact with all their details, and provide that to the innovator who asked the question. Then we wait 24 hours, and we give those TACs that responded in the affirmative a list of, or the contact information for that innovator in case they want to be proactive and reach out and offer their assistance to that person. We've done a few hundred of these to date, and it's actually been a very useful tool to refer clients to the centers that want to proactively help them. And while we know the centers and their capabilities, capacities, frankly, we were surprised at some of the responses we received, given the nature of the challenge on the surface, and we thought who the ones who'd respond were, and it was actually a few that are very far afield, you'd think, that say, yep, we have the capability and capacity to assist this. So that is open to anybody, very simple, and the details of it are on meetthetax.ca as well. There's a tile that says, who can help me? And then just follow the process, and it's extremely efficient and fun. So with that, I believe I'm done my overview. If there's any questions or clarifications or anything, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you, Ken. We have some time for questions. If anybody has any questions, I'll use the microphone so that we can have people at home listen. Any questions that anybody has? Just hang on.
Speak to like this. Thanks, Ken. Great presentation, and obviously seen the tax grow from the start, so it's nice to see some of the innovative things that you're doing. I really like that Jump Ball initiative, and it's got me thinking. One thing I'm curious about is like student involvement in the projects. I was wondering if you just speak to what you know about that.
Yep. Well, absolutely. Thank you, Brent. It's interesting, seeing the TACs in action, chatting with them about their challenges and opportunities. There's plenty of money for projects. There's plenty of money for infrastructure. It's the talent piece that seems to be everybody's Achilles heel. And what I've found interesting about the TACs, seeing them in action, is that normally at post-secondary institutions, when there's experiential learning opportunities on campus, that would go to the students of that institution, because often the institution sees them as their clients, and it's sort of a closed group. What's really neat about the TACs is they're not concerned with somebody's post-secondary affiliation or credentials. They're looking for the skill set to add to the multidisciplinary team to solve the innovation challenge that company brought them. And that might involve having a team of 5 or 6 people with students from the college and a different college and 2 local universities, all bringing a different skill set and level of expertise to that, working with the TAC researchers to solve that challenge. It's nice to see that sort of agnostic attitude and the focus on the skill set brought by the student or the recent graduate, because, I mean, obviously it's an incredible experiential learning opportunity. It's going to set the students up with something on their CV when they graduate. They have experience solving a real life problem for a real company. It's not rehashing a case study in a textbook. I mean, this is a company where the entrepreneur doesn't get a paycheck every 2 weeks, and it's sort of make or break for them. You're trying to help them achieve their goal, get to market. So that's pretty cool. They can talk about that in job interviews. The other important aspect I find, and I think the industry partners like it as well, is that when you have a multidisciplinary team of students like that from different academic backgrounds or academic institutions, you're socializing them to each other before they hit the marketplace, and they don't have to learn on the fly there. They're, you know, engineering students and technicians, technologists, skilled tradespeople, all working together, rowing in the same direction to solve a common challenge, and each lending their piece of expertise to it. I think it's a beautiful model. And like I mentioned a bit earlier, the Capstone Applied Research Project, I think there's so much untapped potential to equip the students with the innovation skills, innovation literacy they need to really take it to the next level.
Awesome answer. Just a follow-up would be maybe you could speak about like an example where maybe a TAC has worked with a university or taken a graduate student on the project, and how that maybe played out in real life. Like, what were the lessons learned? How did it work? Because I think that's, you know, it's an obvious opportunity, an untapped opportunity maybe here in well, across Canada.
No, absolutely, and it builds on the narrative of TACs producing innovation talent, where we see it particularly in Quebec. And a lot of that's just due to their post-secondary system, and it's great having 13 different post-secondary systems in one country. But the fact of the matter is that masters, PhDs, postdocs, a large percentage of them when they graduate are not going to circle back into academia, and they'll have to go into industry. Contrast that with the fact that the TACs, connected to a public college, there are constraints on what they can pay their people. So when you have researchers, scientists, top-tier collaborative applied researchers on the bleeding edge of new novel technologies, and every project they do is in partnership with industry, and the industry partner sees the potential of this long-term, and they ask, well, you're great, what do you make? And then they tell them, and they laugh and say, okay, yeah, that's adorable. I'm going to double it. I'm doubling it, you start with me Monday. And then those people are gone. It's an operating reality for the TACs, but they wear it as a badge of honor, because now there's more ambassadors for the collaborative TAC model out there in industry. But there's also a pipeline issue here, where if they don't have the team at the TAC, they can't take on the projects, and it's sort of a vicious circle. So what they try to be proactive and connect with the local and regional universities and try to find different academic backgrounds and talents and faculties and schools where the skill sets that these students, PhDs, postdocs are coming out with are incredibly relevant to the nature of the projects that TAC's doing. And they basically take them in, spend 6 months de-greening them, showing them how they can apply their expertise, assist on a project, lead a project, expose them to 20 or 30 different projects over a 12 to 18 month period, knowing that that's sort of the tipping point. They'll be at their most productive. They've de-greened them. They're incredible collaborators and researchers, knowing that, okay, odds are you're going to get poached by the private sector. That's okay. If not, if you're going to stay at the TAC and do your research, because it's an incredible place to work, work-life balance is tremendous, you're now going to have to step your game up and start managing people, mentor the next generation. You can't just stay in your corner and do your R&D. So as almost a self-preservation mechanism, they've been forced to collaborate very closely with the universities to get that talent that's graduating and prepare them for an eventual career in industry that's a lot more enjoyable and impactful transition than going right from the lab at the institution right into the frying pan of industry. So it's a great model that isn't really spoken of now because they just take it for granted because of that survival mechanism that I think's a great non-threatening model that we actually need more of, especially given the demographics and the percentage of people that aren't going to circle back into academia. And then maybe their time in the TAC and then in industry makes them a more valuable asset to go back into post-secondary education as an instructor, as faculty, as a mentor. So I really see no downside, but I think you can understand the balancing act the TAC has with keeping that talent pipeline full.
I like it. You want to come work for my TACs? Or?
Other questions?
I'm just trying to get a sense of, I'm trying to think of what the right phrase is, but I'm talking about knowledge transfer. So like, if you're doing all this innovation and it's being done in different hubs, it's great if it's private industry and it's for a company, but if it's for, trying to solve like food security or something like that, like how do you translate that knowledge so that more people can benefit, like Canada can benefit, so we benefit as a country and as a society? Because to me, that's kind of what I think maybe the ultimate goal is in a lot of those things.
Absolutely, and again, it's one of those unintended consequences of the TAC model, where I mentioned it's a 5-year renewable award, and they're judged by NSERC on how many small companies they've helped and how much private sector revenue they've brought in. So they're mutually exclusive, but they're trying to use this as a tool to move the needle on BIRD. What's great is there's no set revenue target, and there's full acknowledgement of the different operating conditions in rural and remote areas versus large urban areas. Industrial sectors with a history of R&D and some that are new to the game. Sectors that are emerging and hot right now, and ones that are going through a pivot due to macroeconomic forces well outside of their control. A good example of that, of the sort of the greater good piece is, well, I've got a couple, but one is the ways to work with the TAC in the sort of bottom right middle. There's another one, industry associations, and that's also a source of some of the projects where, for instance, commercial beekeeping. I believe there's 18,000 commercial beekeepers across the country. Most of them are sole proprietorships or micro-sized businesses. It wouldn't make sense for them individually to do an applied research project with the National Bee Diagnostic Center in Grand Prairie. The challenges facing the beekeeping community writ large are challenges that impact Canada as a whole. So what their industry association does is they'll survey the members and find out what the problems they're having are, and then sponsor a research project with that TAC to mitigate it for pest pathogens, parasites, that kind of thing. And the TAC will work with a subset of maybe 10 or 20 commercial beekeepers across the country, get that data, do the project, and the findings they give back to the industry association to disseminate to all of its members to apply the results in their own operations. And that sort of economies of scale and efficiencies will have a much larger impact than trying to serve as 18,000 companies individually, especially when it is sort of, there are common problems that crop up. And we see that a lot in any sort of industry where there's a heavy, not heavy, but a regulatory burden. And it again shows the role of the TAC as a bit of an intermediary, where, say, there's a government body and they're going to be enacting some new rules and regulations that are going to impact the companies that operate in that sector. The TAC can act as a buffer, because, well, a buffer, a translator, okay? Because they can speak, bureaucratese as well as industry.
Good word.
So the new regulatory regime coming in, they tell the TAC, here's what we're planning in the next 18 months. Could you let us know what the community thinks of that? And the TAC will go out, translate that into small businesses, say, look, here's some of the changes they're thinking of enacting. Here's how it's going to impact you, your bottom line. What are your thoughts? And then they can take the feedback, the pitchforks, the torches back, translate it, massage it a bit, and go back to the government and say, yes, okay, by and large, most of it's acceptable, everybody's cool, but did you think about the unintended consequences of this, this, and this? And then it creates a two-way dialogue with that translator in the middle to make sure the messages don't get lost in translation, to have better outcomes for both the regulatory body and the end users of these new policies, kind of thing. I guess there's two other examples of that knowledge transfer having a greater benefit. I can think of, a few examples where the company came. So a good one's IVI, Innovative Vehicle Institute in Saint Jerome, Quebec, where a company came in with an idea for the courier vehicles like Pure Later, UPS, FedEx, those trucks. Everybody's getting the stuff on Amazon and the eBay, and they drive around, drop off the packages. That's diesel engines, gas engines, pollution, that kind of thing. The company had an idea. What about if we take these courier vehicles that are end of life, take out the internal combustion drivetrain, put in an electric drivetrain, and give it enough range to do exactly the kind of routes that these vehicles were doing, and daily, and charge them, that kind of thing. So they did that project, and were able to find a drivetrain that worked in the vehicle. Very easy existing infrastructure to charge it, and it could do 150 kilometers in a day, whether it's plus 50 or minus 40. And that company is now able to commercialize that and commercialize the service of retrofitting electric drivetrains into vehicles that have reached their nominal end of life. So the TAC helped them do that, gave them the IP, now they're able to do that. The impact on the environment of the whole country, the greenhouse gas reductions, if this went to scale, would be enormous. But that wasn't the motivation of that company. They were just thinking, what do we do with these vehicles? Is there a better way? And the TAC was able to help bridge that gap. There's similar examples in like the fishing and marine industry, the boating community, greenhouse gas emissions from livestock. You know, figuring out the feed efficiency maximized feed for the cow, where you feed them 30% less, they grow twice as quick, and their greenhouse gas emissions are reduced too. 3 or 4 cows is one thing, but over 10, 15, 30,000 head of cattle, that's going to have a macro impact that, again, was never the motivation of the innovator entrepreneur who went in. They weren't trying to fix the environment, they were trying to commercially exploit a market opportunity. And the trickle-down effect, the benefit for Canada, is very powerful. So we're seeing a lot of that more often. It's almost the unintended consequences of innovation, but it's very positive.
Other questions? Ken, thank you very much for the presentation.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Really, enlightening. Thanks again.
Great.
Thank you, everyone.